Hey guys, welcome back. Today I've got this old beater of a chainsaw that was dropped off at the shop. I don't take these in to work on for customers, but I've got some spare time in the shop right now, and I thought, you know what, let's see if this thing will run and make a video at the same time. So what this saw is, guys, is an old Remington PL-4. It actually looks in pretty good shape if you look at it. Everything's there. It might even be the original bar, guys, because this saw was only used by a cottager. It's been sitting for about 25 years. It hasn't started for at least 25 years, and I'm wondering what's going to happen. So I'm going to get right into it here, guys. It's going to be everything unedited, and we'll see how it turns out. So here it is. This is all original. It's never been painted. Carburetor's under here. A nice good old Tillotson carburetor, and it's actually pretty clean in there. Throttle mechanism works. This saw here actually reminds me of the older Homelite XL. Just comment below if you think the same thing. When the guy first showed up here, first of all I thought, oh, is he bringing this to be repaired? Then he said, do you want it? I said, sure. But before I looked at it, I thought he was giving me an old Homelite. But no, it's an old Remington, which I've never seen much in the shop here, to be honest with you. And that's why I'm curious to see if it's going to run. Now, this saw here was first introduced in 1965, and it is a 59cc chainsaw. So the engine was a good fair size, 59 cc's. That'd be kind of like buying the MS-291 chainsaw today, I guess, or the Husqvarna 562 XP, but they do spin a lot slower than the new ones, guys. So let's get right into it. First of all, I want to try to get this recoil here to retract more easier. See, when I go to pull it, it actually has good compression, but that cord won't go back in quickly. It's a real pain. So that's an easy fix here, and I'll show you how to do that. Just flip this over. There are 4 screws holding the recoil on. So somebody's been in here and scraped off some dirt at some point. So all I do here, guys, is I just spray some WD-40 right inside on the parts here, but mostly you want to get it down between the rotor and the outer part of the casing. It's just, it probably all got gummed up from sitting for decades. See how quickly it's coming back now? And just put a whole bunch on there. It's not going to hurt anything. Okay, I've got it working pretty good, and it's quiet now too. And look at the plate here, Remington, made in Canada. Now the switch wire got disconnected, so I'm just going to connect it here, right there. Okay, and I'll put all the 4 screws back. And after that, what I will do is check for spark. So what you need for small engines to work is compression, spark, and fuel. And you need some air mixed into that too. All right, what I need to do now is remove the spark plug. It's located right here. Before I start pulling like a madman, I just want to make sure that there is some spark. I could have sprayed something in the car, but there's like a tiny air filter here, and it looks like a pain to get off. Okay, I've got the switch on. Here's my plug grounded, and I'm hoping that there's going to be some spark. I'm going to shut the lights off here so it's easier to see. No spark, guys. I'm even grounding my hand, and there's absolutely nothing. I'll try another plug here, see what happens. Here's a Bosch plug. and still nothing. Okay, let's take this recoil off again. This is an old saw with points and condenser and a coil as well. Those days are long gone, guys. You don't see points and condensers on small equipment. Now what I could do before I go through all the work of taking the flywheel off is disconnect the switch wire, put the recoil back on. I'm just going to put it on with like 2 screws, and that's to verify that it's not the switch that is causing a no spark. And we still have no spark, guys. Look, I'm gonna ground my hand to the plug and to the muffler here. Oh, I am feeling a little bit of spark actually, but it's weak. Now I went and got a brand new CJ8, plugs we rarely use nowadays. Try that. And there's still no spark. I did get a little bit of a shock earlier, but I'm not now. I'm really hoping that the coil's not gone, guys, because it's hard to get another coil. However, if it's just the points, I can probably sand them down and get spark again. Okay, let's get this cover off again. Now, usually I don't use impacts on chainsaws, especially for the flywheel. But this is an old saw, guys, and I really don't care, so I will be using my impact. One little washer in there. Now, I've never really worked on these saws before, guys, so I am a bit green when it comes to these old saws like that. Not sure if this cup comes out separately here. I would imagine it does. There we go. Now what I will do here, because I'm not using a puller for this, I'm just going to put the nut just like that. I'm actually going to put it flush with the flywheel. Now for the next step, make sure you've got your safety glasses, and I'm using a brass hammer. And what I'll do here is just hold the saw in my hands and tap it. And it's loosened up. And here's our points and condenser right in here. Now, whether you've done points on a lawnmower, an old snowblower, it's pretty well the same principle, guys. You gotta adjust your points. They gotta be clean, not all burned up. So if you've done it on another piece of equipment, you can do it on this one too. So have a look at the points right here. They're a bit open. Now what I need to do is take the clutch cover off so that I can turn the engine over to see how they're opening and closing first. And look at how clean the clutch drum is and the sprocket. So I don't think this machine has a lot of time on it. So now what I can do is just go at the end of the crankshaft here with a ratchet and socket and turn my engine easily. So normally I would set points on old stuff like this at 20 thousandths of an inch. Sometimes you may not have spark because the points are not opening just from being old and the material on this part down here wearing out. So as I turn the engine, just have a look here to see if these open up, open and close. There, they just opened up now. So I'm going to do one turn here and open them up again. and I'm going to check the gap. There we go. And here's my 20 thou feeler gauge, metric 0.508. And let's see how tight they go in there. Yeah, actually the gap is too small, guys. I don't think that's why there's no spark. I'm hoping that just by sanding the points, I'm going to get some spark back. I really hope so, because if it's a coil, I'm in trouble. So the gap, I'm just checking to see what the gap is currently set at. Here's a 15 thou gap, feeler gauge, I mean. It's not going in. But the 10 thou went in earlier. Yeah, so I'm at about 10 thousandths of an inch here on those. I will open them up a bit more. And to do that, all you do is you leave them in the position that they're the most open at, like it is now. You loosen that screw here. I just loosen it a bit so that the settings on the points don't go off more than they are. So I still left the screw snug there. Now I just reach down over here with the screwdriver and just pry the thing so that it opens up a bit. May have to loosen that just a bit. There we go. So I've got them opened up a bit more. Sometimes I do it by eye, but today I'm using the gauge just so that anybody watching that's not sure how to do it knows how. Then run your feeler gauge in. And you want it snug in there. You don't want it like super tight. It's a bit tight right now, so I'm going to go back and extend the gap. Now I've got it too much, so I'm just going to leave the feeler gauge in there like that. And then I will bring the gap back to the gauge. Snug this. I felt it go back a bit more there. So 20 thou, just a bit less. Now I've got them set good. I'm going to tighten up that screw. Check it again. You can also check it again after you've done a few revolutions with the engine. Now what I will do is turn that engine until they are closed, and I'll show you why. Okay, what I've got here is a piece of 320 emery paper. You can use a 400 if you want. 320 is a little aggressive, a little coarse, but this is an old saw and I want to really clean up those points. So now what I'll do is just pop the points open from down here. The points don't look too bad, guys. They don't look extremely burnt, but they might have enough dirt on them to prevent a good spark. Here's after the first pass. Now this might be easier if I actually took the points off the machine, the saw I mean, but usually I don't have to do that. And if you're not too used to chainsaws and you're working on them, you're better off to just leave them on and do it this way. And then flip your paper over so you always have a nice fresh piece. You can even add a bit of pressure with your screwdriver, but usually just the spring from the points does the trick. Okay, I've got some 400 grit. I'm going to run the 400 grit just to smoothen them out even more. Make sure your hands aren't oily when you do that. You don't want to get oil on the points. And these points are looking pretty good actually, guys. Now what I will do is rotate the engine again and have a look at the points. We want them to be opening and closing at the right gap. I always do that. I always double check once I set points, because sometimes you do a few revolutions and it's not quite exactly what you thought you had it at. Let's get the 20 thousandths. Make sure it's clean, no grease. And it's perfect. So I'll put this back on. Now before closing up the points here, you might want to put a bit of lithium grease on the shaft. That's to prevent excessive wear on this part here of the points. And there's also a felt here to catch any excess grease. Okay, here's how this goes. This one here is actually quite simple to work on. And I'll just air blow this quickly here. Okay, I've cleaned the flywheel as well. I'm just going to wipe the coil here. Flywheel's ready to go in. Just got to line up the keyway to the key on the shaft. Okay, now the starter cup can go in, and it actually lines up with the this part here on the flywheel, both of these. Now there's a washer and the nut. So what I'll do with the nut there is just snug it with the impact. I normally don't do that on new saws, but this is an oldie and I don't even know if it's going to work, so I don't need to be too precise here. And now I can tighten it up by hand. That's good. Now let's get that recoil on and see if there is any spark. That's the $1 million question, guys, because if there isn't any spark, this project is dead. So I got to put the switch wire right here on the coil. And put the 4 screws again. I'm kind of excited, guys. I haven't worked on old stuff like this in many years. And that's the reason, because of time. Because of time, guys. If you take these in for a repair job, don't expect to make any money. Just do it for fun. Or if you're a collector, or if somebody wants to pay all your hours, then go for it. But that's extremely rare that somebody will want to pay all the hours. Let me know your thoughts on this style of video, guys, because if you do, I will hunt down some of these for when I have slower times in the shop like this year. So I will put the original plug, the one I had right at the start of the video, and we'll see if it has spark now. Let me go turn the lights off. Okay, I'm zoomed into that spark plug. I'm not putting my hand on it this time. And let's see here. Oh wow, look at that. Nice. Definitely not putting my hand between the plug and the muffler this time. And let's hope that the coil holds out. Sometimes these old saws, you revive them and the coil doesn't last, but I won't go there for now. I'm just gonna get this thing running. I'll put the plug in, get the shop lights back on here. Don't they look just like the old home lights, these saws? Okay, let's get the bar and chain back on. I'm not used to putting these on because you don't really see that on the newer saws. Look at this, original bar, Remington. Look at the tip on this thing. First I thought it was a wheel that turned, but there's no sprocket. Look at that. It's just a big circle. And this saw is not auto oiling, you have to manually oil it yourself. I'll show you that in a second here too. Let's get this back on. You know what? I've got this upside down. There we go. Cover's in great shape. Sometimes these old saws come with these covers all busted. Now the chain's a bit loose. The screw is on the inside here. And that is a weird size of nut. Actually, the bar nuts are 9/16. I don't have a scrunch like that, so I'm just going to use my wrench. So here's another quick overview before I gas it up and oil it up. It is manual oiler right here. There's the oil fill and the gas tank. I will put some oil in there, just some regular bar oil. There's already a bit of oil in there, I noticed, so I'm just going to put a little bit. It's got a bit of mixed gas in there, fresh gas. And there wasn't any old gas in there, so that's good. The tank was nice and dry. It doesn't stink like varnish or anything like that. And I can see the fuel line here, so that's a good thing. Sometimes they're broken and in the bottom. Okay, since this saw hasn't ran in so many years, I don't feel like pulling and pulling till I get the fuel up to the carb. I want to cheat a little bit, but the air filter here is blocking the carb, so I'm just going to remove this bolt. Get that filter out so I can shoot some mixed gas right in there. We've got good spark and compression, so we're almost there. So I lost my little squirt can, so I'm using a big baster here. I'm just going to shove some down there like that and tilt the saw upward so the gas goes in. Get that choke on to keep gas in there, and I'll pull it over right here outside. Let's get the screwdriver. So what I'll do here is I'm back in the shop. I will turn the screws out a bit. L half turn out, H half turn out, just to give me extra fuel, and then set it later. This thing might need a carb kit too. Usually they do when they've been sitting this long. Okay, I stopped to open more doors so the exhaust leaves the shop. I'm going to start it again, see if it will start right back. Look at this mess, guys. This all came out from the bar oil, actually the oil splashing from the chain and the exhaust. What a mess. Brake cleaner works really good to clean this off. Seeing that the saw runs really well, I'm going to splurge and put in that new spark plug. It had an old CJ6. Now I'm going to put back the air filter. It's quite intact after all these years. It's quite simple. Just a square mesh. Now during the process when I was running the saw here, guys, at the beginning I told you I turned the two screws L and H half a turn. After I got it running pretty good, I was able to kind of go back in almost for everything that I turned out. So I turned it in almost half a turn in again, both of them. And I adjusted the idle screw. It idles good and it revs good too. And there's a second air filter right here. So what I'll do, guys, is readjust the chain. It got quite loose since I ran it. Look at that. I'll do a quick adjust and then sharpen it quickly by hand, manually, and go test it out in some logs. So I'll just take a few strokes here on each tooth. This chain is actually pretty hard. And I'm using a 7/32 file. And I'm sharpening the teeth at 30 degrees approximately. And I'm holding the file totally straight horizontally. Actually, I'm going to change this file. Much better with the new file. Wow, day and night, look at that. Now when you're sharpening by hand like this, only apply pressure when you're pushing forward, not on the way back. And it'll do a beautiful job. So 5 or 6 strokes usually does it. And I usually go in with a flat file after and file down the rakers. I usually try to keep the raker 20 thousandths below the cutting edge. Usually 1 or 2 passes and it'll do the trick. So just repeat the process. You flip the saw around in your vise and do the other side of the chain, the other teeth. Do exactly like I showed you. I'm outside in the backyard here and I'm gonna cut this tree up in pieces. So there we go, guys. I'm actually surprised that it ran. I thought for sure that coil would be bad, but it turned out otherwise. I have not replaced the carburetor kit. So just a note here, guys, sometimes you get a saw going like this, you use it a bit, then it stops working and you've got to do the carb kit. Sometimes the crank seals. So again, this is a labor of love, guys. If you come across stuff like that, don't expect to make much money fixing them. Now, just a quick tip, guys, don't put an old saw like this on your concrete floor because you will have an oil stain for sure. And here's a close-up look at it again here. I will not be keeping this saw, guys. I don't have room. If there's any genuine collectors out there and you're missing this saw, just message me in the comments. I don't want much for it. And I would like to see it go to a good home, guys. And I'll show you the tag underneath here. I showed it at the beginning of the video. It's got the serial number as well on there. Now what I'll do is put the link to the specs of this saw from Mike Akers' website. Great guy, great website. It's like a total reference for any old saw out there. And the year they came out, it's just a great site. Check it out. The link is in the video description. And if you know more about this saw, please comment below. So I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. If I come across other older stuff like this, I'll do the same thing. It won't always work out like this. This was a huge gamble trying to get it going, but you know what? That shows what happens in real life. I just got lucky today. That's about it. And again, if there's some collectors watching this video and you need this saw for your collection, just contact me at donnyboy73@yahoo.com. Thanks again for watching, guys. Please comment below the video and have a great day.